An Academy Knowledge Centre, which is the focus of this study, is the learning initiative that we have worked with them to create. And it's a learning initiative which, as we've highlighted, makes great use of mobile technologies for learning and also embraces social media as well, all in the service of aligning this learning with key business goals. So to set the scene, really, Daiichi Sankyo are on a major change program, and that change program has been provoked by restructuring within the NHS. So for them, there have been huge changes in their marketplace and in the expectations of their customers. And Daiichi are working to embrace that change and striving to add greater value to their customers within the NHS. And really what that amounts to is boosting business agility. So as we say here, developing existing skills and building new ones. They're seeking to build greater collaboration between staff at all levels in the organisation and to increase their capacity for innovation. So they're trying to boost agility across the business to be more flexible, more responsive to meet the changing needs of their customers. They've implemented a major change program across the organisation called Discovery, and every area of the business has been tasked to respond to the challenge. And of course our focus is on learning and development. And Bill Baroni, who's head of learning at Daiichi Sankyo UK, and his team really embraced that challenge. And in the challenge, actually, they saw a great opportunity to move learning really away from something of a tick box culture of learning and development that exists in the pharmaceutical industry, to really embed it into the workplace and into the working experience. And we'll see as we go on what an important factor that mobile technologies and social media have played in that. And they also saw the opportunity for learning technologies to really bring these core goals that the business was asking for, to bring increasing accessibility and flexibility, to allow rapid response and to facilitate collaboration. So they were really keen to embrace these technologies and to make use of them, despite the fact that until about 12 months ago, the organisation had no experience at all of using learning technologies. So everything that you're going to see today and the outcomes that have been delivered have all been created and delivered within the last 12 months. And what I'd like to do is to start actually really by giving you a demonstration of Academy Knowledge Centre to show what it is and what it does. And in doing that, I hope to be able to show how the features and functionality that it has and how the benefits that it is delivering for learners are really aligned with what Daiichi Sankyo as a business overall is trying to achieve. So shortly I'll go into the demonstration. Now, I should explain at the outset really that what I'll be showing you, it is a live system, but it's actually a mirror of the actual system. Because obviously, I mean, like any organisation, but particularly for a pharmaceutical company, Daiichi Sankyo UK have to be very careful about the identities of the people who work for them. So we can't show you the actual live system. But what you'll see is an exact mirror copy in terms of all of the functionality and indeed most of the content. And I'll give you a walk through, and I hope in doing that be able to pull out some of these key features and how they're aligned with what Daiichi Sankyo is trying to achieve overall as a business. So Don, I think this would be a good time, if we can, if you could
sure, if you just
over so we're
okay, that's ready to go.
sharing my screen.
Fantastic. There you go.
Okay, so you can see what I can see, I hope. So,
oops, sorry, Dave, I'm just looking at my client machine here. I've oversized that window. Just 1 second.
okay.
I've managed to cover up the text chat area, which we don't want to do. So slick during rehearsal as well.
It's always slick during rehearsal.
There we go.
Great, thanks very much, Don. So here we are at the login screen for Daiichi Sankyo's Academy Knowledge Centre. Now this is a screen that any Daiichi Sankyo staff member can access from any device anywhere in the world as long as they have an internet connection. So it might be PC, laptop, tablet or mobile phone. And so it's really, in that sense, and what's so all the learning resources that you'll see in the system, all that's available, essentially is available to a Daiichi Sankyo staff member anywhere at any time, provided they have that connection. So I'm just going to log in here. And this effectively is the home page of the portal of the Knowledge Centre. Now the tool is built on Action's Knowledge Centre platform, but it has a series of specific configurations that we've put in to meet the specific requirements of Daiichi Sankyo. And really on the homepage here, there's just a couple of features that I want to emphasise really, is the range of learning content that the Knowledge Centre makes available to Daiichi Sankyo's learners. So for example, we have structured learning courses here. This is over here on the left-hand side. You can see there are a range of courses that have been assigned to me over here. So this is structured learning to support specific skills and competencies. There is a huge range of learning resources to support performance support. Some of those are listed down here. I'll be looking at those in more detail later on. There are collaborative tools, so we have discussion feeds in here. We also have a learning log. It's another collaborative tool that I'll be looking at later on. And we also have links to external learning resources like Wellard's and Astridge. So there's a rich blend of learning opportunity of different types and styles built into the Knowledge Centre. The other aspect that I want to emphasise at this point is the personal and social nature of the learning experience. So this is my homepage, these are my courses, this is my progress that's showing here. I have a profile on the system, although I'm actually logged in as a colleague here, but I have my own profile on the system. I can see the profiles of others down here. Now, obviously, as I said, this is a mirror system, and so it just has a few of my colleagues logged in as example users. But on a live system, almost every single Daiichi Sankyo UK staff member is an active user of the system. So if we were to look down here in the Who's Who section, we would see profiles of almost every staff member at Daiichi Sankyo UK. So really, from the outset, really, what Knowledge Centre is doing is it's combining this rich blend of learning resources with personal and social elements as well. And as we go through, I'll talk more about the social media elements and how the Knowledge Centre is using those. Just to look at these in a little bit more detail, let's first look at structured learning elements. So I can pick a course here that I have been assigned or I may have chosen to do. I'll pick this one on the physiology of blood pressure regulation, obviously a core knowledge area for colleagues who are working at Daiichi Sankyo. Now, Knowledge Centre delivers these structured learning courses to develop the specific skills and competencies relevant to the business. We have worked with Daiichi Sankyo to create courses in a range of business needs. So there's product knowledge, there's compliance, sales excellence, and other corporate requirements.
Sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
Owen. A quick question here from Casson saying, what's meant by an active user?
Absolutely, yes. So, yes, that's a very good question. I mean, it's a somewhat arbitrary measure. It's through the reporting functionality behind Knowledge Centre, the Daiichi Learning Development team are able to monitor activity. They're able to see what people are doing. And in addition to that, we have measures of course completions and use of resources. And so an active user is someone who the learning and development team deem is, as it were, a regular user of the system. I have to say I'm not exactly sure what metrics they decide, but it's different from somebody who just logged on once and then never returned.
That's great. Thanks very much.
Okay. So coming back to the course structure, courses are basically combinations of a blend of learning materials. So in this example here, this is really quite a straightforward one. So we have a basic structured e-learning course, a kind of e-learning module that I guess most people will be very familiar with. We have an accompanying assessment. We have in this case, just one course resource, which is a PDF document. And we also have an attached discussion thread that allows learners to discuss their experiences of using the course. So again, just to move on a little bit more detail, I'll now show you an example of the e-learning content very briefly. So I can launch an e-learning module directly from my learning record. I'll open up the physiology of blood pressure one. There we are, straight into some structured e-learning material. The courses are SCORM conformant, so obviously they're bookmarking and tracking, so the system has taken me back into the course at the place that I last used it. The interactive e-learning materials that we've created use a range of text, graphics, animations, audio and video, all of the things that you would expect in rich interactive learning materials. But crucially as well, something to point out is that the content has been developed such that it will run in tablet devices. So obviously I'm using a laptop to view this here, but I could be using an iPad or an Android tablet, and the functionality and appearance of the structured e-learning modules would be precisely the same. So obviously we've got the usual sort of simple interactions. There's a question screen here. Unfortunately I can't see the chat feed because I'm showing my screen, but I'm sure that there are already some contributions to the answer to this question. What people think, if all the vessels of the human circulatory system were laid out end to end, how long would the resulting vessel be? Sure, as we all know, it's really quite long, 75,000 miles. But anyway, so the usual sort of simple interactions that you would expect to see in structured e-learning, with layering of information, with interactive questions. As I say, some modules use audio and video. But there were some particular challenges in this case, and one of those was the very highly regulated nature of the pharmaceutical working environment. So what you will notice here, and it's a standard practice when creating pharmaceutical content, is that all of the content has to be referenced. And managing the referencing process in e-learning through a formal pharmaceutical review process was quite a complex challenge, but it's critical if effective content is to be created and used. So that's an example of the structured e-learning, and I guess this is something that is really, a mainstay of e-learning, so no particular surprises here. But as I said, what is innovative here is that this is fully interactive, SCORM-conformant e-learning, and this is running for the HE staff in tablet devices as well as via their laptop or PC or whatever device they happen to be using. And obviously, as I've hinted already, the Knowledge Centre is tracking progress and activity with these learning materials. So it's providing a full learning management system as well for the HE Sankyo L&D team. As I mentioned before, each course has an attached discussion thread to it as well, and obviously this is where the system is really embracing these, the ideas really of social media. Now, much more so when we interact with online content, we expect to be able to contribute perhaps our thoughts and our experiences of using it, and we expect to be able to see what others are saying about it as well. So the courses have attached discussion threads, and as well as just allowing people to share and feedback their experiences, they are also a valuable channel for the L&D team to be gathering feedback, suggestions for modifications or new content. So it's quite an important channel for learners to feedback on their learning experience. Just coming back to the home page now, I want to just look at some of the other learning resources that are available. As I said, supporting the goal of increased responsiveness, the Knowledge Centre makes available a huge range of learning resources to Daiichi Sankyo staff. So if we come into the resources area, the resources are categorised into these categories. Resources can be a huge range of different formats, so we might have video files, podcasts, sound files, obviously things like PDF documents, PowerPoint, really any sort of supporting information and learning resource which may be valuable to someone in their work. And obviously with the mobile capability as well, it's making this range of resources available for staff when they need it, where they need it, which is a really powerful enhancement for performance support. So you can see one example in here would be, for example, under innovation and discovery, Daiichi Sankyo earlier this year held an innovation camp where they got a lot of people together for a while, and they were looking at innovative new projects, and they're quickly able to take a lot of the materials that are created on that day and make them accessible to everyone via the Knowledge Centre resource area. We've even got things in here like webinar. I won't attempt to start a webinar within a webinar, but things like that, so where they've been able to capture other learning events like webinars and so forth, they can be made available to everybody via Knowledge Centre. So the resources area is a powerful tool for performance support. The final strand really of the learning materials that I want to look at in the live demo is the tool called the learning log. And the learning log really is where the sort of structured learning elements and the collaborative elements overlap, and it's proved an incredibly powerful feature within Daiichi Sankyo, very, very popular with learners. So in essence, the learning log is just that. It's a record of all learning activity that staff are completing. So when they complete a structured course or an assessment or a survey, when they use a resource, that is included automatically into their learning log. They can annotate those entries, so they can add notes and other observations they may have about the learning experience to personalise that record. But crucially as well, they can add learning events of their own. So I can go in here, add the date, time, and then I can choose to categorize this. But crucially, what I can add here is a learning experience, new knowledge, something that I may have picked up from the field, and I can contribute that back into the learning log. And those learning log entries are monitored, and then they can be shared with others. So effective new learning, new insights, new developments can quickly be spread to colleagues via the Knowledge Centre. And this feature has proved incredibly popular, and obviously it's allowing Daiichi Sankyo to be responsive to events that are happening out in the field. Their field-based staff are an incredibly valuable source of insight into what's going on for customers within the marketplace. And the Knowledge Centre is allowing them to capture that information and to share it. And it's proved so successful that the Knowledge Centre is actually going to replace the dedicated software that Daiichi Sankyo were using to capture field-based insights, because learners are proving so effective at collaborating through the Knowledge Centre, sharing insights that they found in the field. So that's been a very, very powerful added bonus. And I must say as well, I mean, I've talked to Daiichi Sankyo learners, and they are almost evangelical about the learning log. They love it. The fact that it's tracking what they're doing, they can use it in review meetings, they can annotate it, they can add their own experiences through it. So this has proved an extremely powerful tool, and it's really ticking those boxes of increasing collaboration and sharing, and also increasing responsiveness. So that's really, I don't want to labour the demo too much. I mean, I hope we give you a feel of what the tool is and what it's allowing Daiichi Sankyo to achieve. As I said, it's been extremely popular with learners. And bear in mind as well, the tool was launched in February of this year. And so all of this activity and the adoption of it has all occurred really within the last few months, and this in an organisation that wasn't using any e-learning at all prior to that. So Don, probably this is a pretty good time to switch back to the slides. That's it, if you're able to. So Don, are we back?
Yep, you're back. We can see the slides.
Fantastic. So I hope that demonstration, from a sort of practical point of view, has been able to illustrate what the tool is, what it is, what it does. Something obviously it's difficult to emphasise in a webinar, but I think is very, very important, is the power that making all of these materials available through mobile devices has delivered to field-based staff. We have surveyed user experience extensively. As I said, we've spoken to learners as well, and it's consistently repeated how powerful it is to have this kind of tool available anywhere at any time for staff who are moving around all of the time, and how much that's contributed to a key goal of the learning and development team, which was to take learning out into the workplace. Just to show on screen here, one thing I should say is obviously the tool is available through the browser on any device, but there are also companion apps for tablet and for phone. The companion app for tablet allows staff to access all of the materials that we've just looked at in pretty much the same format as the browser-based version, but it obviously takes advantage of the interface opportunities that are presented in an app. The phone-based app, obviously, we don't think, and I think most people would agree, that many people will want to be completing their structured e-learning courses via their smartphone. So the phone-based app presents a subset of the information. So it presents the resources, it presents the discussions, it presents the profiles, the kind of information that you're going to be more comfortable accessing through your phone. But that mobile capability has really been a very, very powerful contributor to the success of the system and to enabling it to meet business goals. So it's had great responses, it's really helping to drive innovation, it's increasing collaboration and responsiveness, it's been a powerful agent of change. But what really have been the key success factors in driving that? Is it the blend of materials that's available? Is it this mobile access that puts learning into the workplace? Is it the social media functionality? Well, I think yes and no. It's all of these things. But really, those things themselves are actually outcomes of an effective alignment process. The process by which business needs were established and the solution was designed to meet them. So I want to just move on briefly to look at how that alignment was achieved in the first place. And I hope here that this will bring out these kind of general principles which would apply to building alignment regardless of what the challenge was and regardless what the media that were used were. And I think there are three key areas that I want to highlight. So firstly really was this business of building alignment with the business and in placing learning at the heart of the journey of discovery. Remember, discovery was the corporate change program that Daiichi Sankyo had introduced. So first and foremost, right from the start, the project was absolutely aligned with the culture and values, these values of increasing business agility and innovation. In fact, Bill Baroni's job title is actually Head of Learning and Innovation, which I think captures very neatly how the emphasis that Daiichi Sankyo place on learning and development in helping them achieve their business goals. The second key element for building any sort of alignment is to have senior leadership support. Now in this case, the medical director at Daiichi Sankyo UK was a member of the core project team. So at every stage of the development, the leadership were directly connected into the process. And I think the third crucial area in which Bill and his team sought to build alignment was with this goal to build learning into the workflow. And that was really allowing them to address the responsiveness and the collaboration that was being demanded by the business. It just wouldn't have been possible to achieve that in a silo-based approach to learning and development. So these are all key things that Daiichi Sankyo did to build alignment with the business. The second crucial area, I think, for any initiative to be aligned, obviously, is engagement with stakeholders throughout the organisation. So what were Daiichi Sankyo doing to encourage that? Well, I've picked out about three things here really that really helped drive engagement with stakeholders. The first and probably the most important, I think, was the creation of a focus group. So right from the start of the project, a focus group of 8 staff from across the organisation came together, and throughout the development of the project and subsequently now that it's live, the focus group are guiding new developments, they're feeding back ideas and information from staff across the organisation and generally giving their advice and input. And of course, crucially, the focus group members become champions. They are key communicators of the benefits back to the business. Another important engagement with stakeholders was that subject matter experts throughout the organisation have been directly connected into the content creation process. And this helps to build trust amongst learners of the content that they're receiving, is knowing that the people that they trust within the organisation are involved in developing and presenting the content. I think another important area of engagement is really through the feedback that the social media tools of the Knowledge Centre allow. So it's a very interactive experience. Learners can feedback directly through a number of channels, through the learning log, through the discussion feed, and make their contributions. I think a very important point to make here, and a real enabler of contribution and being able to give your feedback, was the way that Daiichi Sankyo are overcoming the challenges really of moderation and control, especially in such a tightly regulated environment. Because obviously they have to be extremely careful about anything that is being said about products or about therapeutic areas, because these things are very tightly regulated. They took the view that moderation of contributions to the knowledge center, to the discussion threads, would just kill off discussion altogether. If people thought that everything they said had to be checked before it could be published, people just wouldn't bother to contribute and collaborate. So what they did was introduce a policy on safe use of social media, which essentially said to staff, you know about the ABPI regulatory code, you know about our other policies and procedures on information security and so forth. So we are trusting you to use this system safely, to think about what you contribute and make sure that it doesn't breach any of our policies or the ABPI code. And users of the system are required to sign that policy, and then after that, access is pretty much unmoderated. And it seems to have been an incredibly successful approach to place the trust with the learner. It's allowed really effective and active contribution to the system. And so far, they haven't had any issues with that. So that's interventions to promote engagement with stakeholders, which is a key to driving alignment with business goals. And then the final one, I think that's very important for any intervention, and certainly was important in this case, is what we've called here internal marketing and support. It might be called communications, I guess. So the means by which you are telling the business what's coming, why it's being done, how it can make a difference, what they have to do to become involved in it, how you're communicating the successes, the challenges, new developments, really the whole business of marketing and supporting the intervention within the organisation. And Bill and his team were really fantastically proactive on this. And again, one of the decisions they took very early on was to embrace the technologies that they were asking people to use and that they wanted to embed in the way that they communicated. So they used a whole range of, what once were called new media, I guess, but now are just called media, to do this. So for example, Bill started a blog about the project very early on, talking about its development, talking about what was being done, and what it would deliver. They have another social media tool in the organisation called Chatter, which just allows exchange of views and information, and they use that tool to promote and support the system. They used YouTube clips, so they found third-party YouTube, external stories about people talking about how learning technologies had helped them in their work, had proved successful, and they made a set of those available to all staff. They did video tutorials, they held webinars, and generally embraced a whole range of online technologies in order to market and support their own online technology. And that proved fantastically successful again at preparing people for what was coming, helping to communicate to them what they would have to do, and really getting their buy-in and engagement. So these are the three factors, I think, that really have proved powerful in building alignment. So aligning with the core business goals and values, engaging with stakeholders, and internal marketing and support, or communication. And the outcome of all this, as you've seen, really has been fantastically successful. So this tool, as they launched in February, into an organisation which previously wasn't using learning technologies at all, has really been very well adopted and very well received. So 90% of staff are active users. There's been an awful lot of completion. I must say these figures are slightly out of date now. They're probably 2 or 3 months out of date, but large amounts of the structured learning are being completed. Large proportion of staff are actually using the apps as opposed to just the browser accessible version of the Knowledge Centre as well. We have conducted online surveys as well as more qualitative analyses. We had a fantastic response to the survey. Over 90% of all staff responded, and we're seeing fantastic approval ratings for the system. we're also able to capture through that an awful lot of text-based responses as well. And overwhelmingly, what staff are saying is, these technologies are putting learning into my workplace, meeting that key goal. They're making it easier for me to access learning when I need to, and that is making me more confident in my interactions with my customers. So it really is completing that link through to the learning goal of putting learning into the workplace through to the business goal of enhancing the service that they're able to provide to their customers. In terms of really hitting that core business goal, it's quite difficult to get quantitative measures really in this area. But essentially, one of the things that Daiichi Sankyo are looking at is one of the ways, a crucial way in which they engage with their NHS clients is to work with them in innovative projects in healthcare. And really, in order to do that, their field-based staff have to have great confidence in their knowledge, they have to be responsive, and crucially as well, they have to be compliant. They have to be confident that they understand the boundaries and what they can say and what they can do. And as I've said already, from the survey evidence from staff, we're seeing strong evidence that this confidence in core knowledge and in compliance is improving, and that is leading to an increase in the number of innovative projects that Daiichi Sankyo staff are conducting, and that in turn is leading to greater engagement with their NHS customers. Another benefit has been return on investment, so as well as delivering these powerful business benefits in core areas, the system is also saving money, so it's reducing the cost of induction training. It's actually going to save more money by, as I said, removing the need for this field-based coaching software, which Daiichi were previously using. But it really is a tool which has, I think, overall, I mean, the key message is this is a tool which has truly aligned with what the organisation is trying to achieve. And I hope I've been able to pick out some of what I think are the key factors in making that happen in the development process. So really aligning with those core values of the organisation and what they were trying to achieve in increasing business agility. By using learning technologies, using social media, using mobile, to take learning out into the workplace, and then communicating and marketing and supporting that solution, again using new technologies, social media, in order to be able to do that. And it really has had a tremendously positive impact for the organisation. It's fantastic to see the head of the organisation really reflecting on the contribution that the tool is making, absolutely in the terms that are most crucial to the business. So that's the Academy Knowledge Centre at Daiichi Sankyo UK. I think we should say that, for Actian that reflect on the fact that a key success factor has been how fantastically engaged, dynamic and innovative Bill and his team have been in supporting this. They've been real champions of learning technologies and the solution. And just a final plug to say that the solution is shortlisted for e-learning project of the year, and we'll find out tonight whether it's been successful in that, but obviously we're really delighted with the way that it's worked out. So I hope there's been some useful stuff in there, a mixture of seeing the practical things that Daiichi are doing, and then perhaps also looking at some of the general principles which help to achieve alignment with business goals. And Don, I hope you've been fielding questions and suggestions, and maybe you can feed a few of those into me.
I'll try and do that before the police, whose sirens we can hear in the background, take you away. Absolutely, that's great. Do you want to move on to the last slide so that we've got contact details for people?
That's the last one I've got, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. Well, okay, that's our last slide, which is great for Actian. Do you just want to drop your email address or any contact details into the chat area? So you.
Yes, of course, yeah. Yeah.
Great question. Let's start off with a couple of general ones, and I'm just going to get because what I do, guys, is I keep a sort of running aggregate of questions by topic in a Word document I copy and paste into. And, right. Sorry, I'm looking at Jonathan Burnham at the same time as reading this. So very quickly then, we had some questions answered. Great. Big picture stuff to begin with. How many staff in total? Well, about 100, but you can do this with larger organisations. We had Howard pitching and saying that. Jonathan Vernon asked, do people learn in company time or in their own time? And Andrew asked a corollary, does the system fit with the CPD process, or is it learning management, or what? How much is it process driven? So 2 questions there. When are people learning, and how much does it fit into company process?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the when are people learning absolutely is, I mean, that's a very interesting point. I think a mixture really of in work time and in their own time, and certainly, I I know from specific examples of talking to field sales staff, and also from some material that we actually recorded as part of the sort of part of the evaluation process, is that an awful lot of the learning taking place is actually taking place in places like hospital car parks and hospital waiting rooms, in this kind of what was previously downtime, when particularly field-based representatives are waiting on meetings or travelling between meetings. So in that sense, a lot of it in company time. In terms of linking into CPD, yes, it does, and actually it will do even more so. I mean, it was really the focus initially was on empowering the customer-client interaction. So it was actually very much on performance support and taking that learning out there. But a development in 2013 is actually to integrate the knowledge centre, to make really the knowledge centre the hub of the whole induction and CPD process.
Okay. Let's move on, because there's a bunch of questions there. And a lot of people liking the idea of the word hub. Impact, that's what the presentation was about. A lot of questions about that, and I'm going to bundle them all up. But before I ask you that question, a very good question from Jean. How do you keep people coming back? If it's pull rather than push, how do you encourage people to pull? What's the answer to that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think with any system like this, I would say, I mean, 2 things really. I mean, it's a bit of I know it's a massively helpful answer, but it is that it has to work. So the key to keeping people coming back is really in all of that alignment work. Is this addressing a real need? Is it delivering learning in a way that's actually helpful for somebody? Because that's why people come back to tools. That, for all of us, with any online technology, we come back to them because they work for us.
Yep.
They give us the thing that we need at the time that we want it, in a form that is useful to us. I mean, so although I appreciate that's probably not the most massively helpful practical answer, but fundamentally that is the reason. On more practical things, I think the other thing is particularly is to say that it needs to be responsive. It needs to be live, so that I think when people come back into discussion threads, they see that there's change, that there is participation. They don't feel that it's a dead.
Okay, quick corollary to that one then. And I absolutely take your point. It has to do with the job. That by itself should be the driver. People don't know what they don't know. So how do you tell people, hey, something new's on the site. If you're interested in this particular issue, there's something here. You can find something here that's a resource for you to draw on. So do you have some push mechanisms in your marketing mix?
No, that's a very good point, actually, and they do. That's what they do. So the marketing is absolutely ongoing. So that hasn't stopped at launch. That carries on. So Bill and his team are regularly communicating out to staff about updates, new courses, new resources, and there is a tool which automatically alerts staff as well to new materials being uploaded.
Very good.
They can choose to.
There's a bit of a debate going on at the moment in the text chat area about what word to use other than training, which perhaps this isn't, but let's not go down there. I'm sure that semantic discussion can continue under its own steam. Impact and feedback, something which we were, this presentation's about. Questions from Steve Hartley, from Con, from Steve James about this topic. Core of the 3 questions was, has any measure been made, not about activity, but about behavioural change as a result of the learning? It doesn't matter what platform, whatever else we deal with. It's a question that always comes up on these sessions, and quite rightly. do we know that whatever you're doing has actually affected what people are doing in the workplace?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think there is not yet a systematic evaluation of specific behaviour change. I think it's reasonable to say that. I mean, as I said, through the evaluation that we've conducted, there is a lot of feedback from learners where they are telling us about behavioural change. They're telling us about increased confidence in meetings. I think the evaluation that is starting to take shape is the one that I hinted at, which is looking at the number and the type of the projects that staff are running with their NHS customers, because that is a product of behavioural change, really, and that ultimately is the crucial outcome that they require.
Is that too far from the learning and the knowledge that's supported by what you're doing? Because there will be other factors involved as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it would need some unpicking of that, of what the contributory factors are. I mean, one thing, I mean, certainly that is being evaluated all of the time is the use of, in staff reviews meetings, with their line manager meetings, the use of the knowledge centre and the learning log is a regular review item. So at that point, the learner is talking about learning that they've done and the impact on their work. So impacts and behavioural change are being gathered in that way.
Fine. Just a couple of points on that. Andrew Mackin says, do we evaluate the behaviour caused by water cooler conversations? No, we don't. The implication being that clearly there's a lot that goes on that we can't.
Yeah, I know,
and of course you're right, Andrew. But of course you don't pay very much for a water cooler. I think the issue here is that, well, there are two issues. Firstly, I think one has to show that if one's put some investment of time and money into something, that it's actually having an effect. But there's another, probably slightly more, not sophisticated, but subtle reason for wanting to look at the impact, and that is to find what's working and what can be improved or tweaked. And I think that from what you're saying, that, for example, the learning log's been terribly successful. Great. You might want to then go back and find other ways of improving that and getting more out of it.
Yeah, that's right, absolutely, and that is being evaluated, on a regular basis through, I mean, particularly through the input of learners feeding back on their experience and the contributions that it's making to what they're doing. I think it's true. I mean, these areas. I mean, in many ways, I think in the something that we've looked at a lot in evaluating the project, and something obviously we had to do, because when you put things in for awards, you have to be very clear about the impact that they've achieved. In some ways, the closer you get to the core business objectives, these very significant changes, the more difficult it is to clearly isolate the specific impact of a learning intervention.
Well, of course, and I've been around the loop on this, and we all have. Anybody who's been in the industry for any amount of time, we know that this is the tough one, and there are times you can really show it. Speed to competence for salespeople is a great example of when you can show it, but unfortunately it doesn't always work. So
yeah, and I think that's one thing. I mean, we could point to that directly. I mean, time to competence for new joiners at Daiichi has been reduced by about 60% by the knowledge centre.
Okay, right. So that's one which is easy.
So those are very tangible outcomes.
The others are more difficult, but we've got lots of good stuff coming through. Yeah. Steve James says, look, there must have been some behavioural change that you can see because Simon Clough said that he saw it, and I think Andy's point is a good one. We shouldn't try to categorise and justify everything. And Nick Emmett makes the same point. Anecdotal evidence, Con says, is usually, it should be at least, if not good enough, and should be at least weight in your favour. Let's move on. How responsive, Catherine asks, are training and development in reference to feedback? So they get feedback through the system. Okay, what do they do about it? Do they do anything? What do they do?
Yeah, I mean, the feedback has, I think primarily, so feedback is coming through the system and through the focus group, and largely, I mean, that is affecting subsequent course content development. So we are linked into that process as well. So we will be, from the learning and development team, when we're planning and instructionally designing new materials, we're looking at that feedback. So it is directly informing the development of new structured learning content. I mean, for example, one of the feedback that has been quite common feedback is, as I said at one point, the Daiichi Sankyo have a separate social media tool that they use called Chatter. And something that some learners have said is that it would be great if all the chatter were linked in one place, so we could carry on our learning and development discussions through the same tool. And so that is a planned integration. So that will be a change that learners will see. So really, I would say there's a fairly continual evaluation of the feedback in content development, and then in these other key areas that there are some substantial developments that will be made in the result of what learners are saying.
Okay. Now, we did mention the learning logs earlier on. Let's go back to them now, because obviously I sort of feel, actually, that the learning log could almost have been a presentation in its own right, because it's so important. Catherine said, can you explain how they actually are monitored? I'd like to know who they're doing it. We had one one response pop up, which was, well, they're monitored to check for what people might say that's naughty. But I think there's much more that you could probably say about that. Is there anything else you'd like to say about the monitoring of the learning logs?
Well, learning logs in particular, I think that they are. I have to say. What I believe happens is that the learning development team they will be notified when a learning log contribution is made. They can then look at that, and if they think that it is something that is an important piece of field-based learning, something that can be shared, then it can be included in a resource or in a discussion feed. So they have various ways in which they can put that out on the rest of the system. But discussion thread entries are not moderated. I think that's quite important to say.
Yes. And you did make that point, to be fair.
Probably the other, in a sense, process of moderation and integration of new learning into the wider thing is that learning logs are a crucial part of the discussion between a field-based staff member and their manager. So in a sense, that's a core area of moderation. So if they're adding their insights, comments, thoughts into that log, then that is reviewed in their face-to-face, in their one-to-one meetings with their manager. And so that's another channel for anything to come out of that and get back into the wider system and be shared with others.
Okay, I'm rushing now because we're getting close to the hour and there's a bunch of questions I want to get through. I just want to go back to Andy's point. Andy, I don't want Andrew Mack in this. Andy raised the point about water cooler conversations. Andy, I don't want you to think that I'm giving you a hard time. I actually agree with your point about the fact that you can neither identify everything and measure it, nor should you try to measure everything. It's a fair point. I wanted to delve a bit deeper than that with Owen, so that's why we had the conversation. There's a very interesting conversation going on in chat right now. Should you try to integrate all of your social media and your collaboration platforms in one place? I think it's a really interesting question. We're not going to touch it now. We've got 3 minutes left, but please continue the conversation. I'm not convinced of the answer either way. So I'm going to leave you guys to try to work that one out. Let's move to technology. Paul Fennick had a bit of a technology head-on, a bunch of questions he'd like to know. So in short order, are you using HTML5 or Flash? Did you develop the companion apps? I think that Actium did. Yeah. And the content for tablet delivery, what was the approach? What was the design and technology to ensure that, as you said quite blithely, it can be delivered to any platform? So can you wrap all that up for us in a single answer?
Yeah, let me do the easiest first. Yes, we did develop the companion apps. Yes, we are using HTML5. I've got to hold my hands up completely. I know that we use HTML5, and I believe that some of the Daiichi content is developed in HTML5. But I, having not been directly involved with the development of the content, I couldn't say for sure whether any of it is in use there. The content, structured learning content, is developed in our own in-house e-learning authoring tool, and that does not use Flash, which is obviously how we're able to output to tablet as well as to other devices.
Just a last point on that then. If you're putting it to various different devices, how does it resize or adapt for each of the devices it's going to? That's a fairly common question at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. And this is where I have to bow to my more technically minded colleagues to do that. I think native HTML and Java is allowing that to happen up to a point. That is why that structured, as I said, that structured e-learning content does not output to the phone, for example.
Yep.
Because that is a step too far. So in this case, that part of the content is not available through the phone interface, but it is available through tablet interfaces.
Okay, cool. Let's push on. Lahmine Soufiane, who's joining us from Morocco, and I'm going to make her question the last, unless I can squeeze in a couple from Dallas, which I'm sorry, Dallas, I haven't got to yours yet. Okay, very quickly then, we'll try and get Dallas's in as well. Okay, Lahmine asks, what methods and techniques of learning... No, let me just ask one simple question from Lahmine, because she had three. Is there any feedback kind, or is there any adaptive learning built into the system, so that according to what people are doing, the next stage and whatever happens is adapted for what they've done before? Is there anything like that built in at present?
That's a very simple one to answer. In the sense of automatically, no, there isn't. That is really not how it's designed to work. No, so there isn't a sense in which you, if I understand this correctly, you might take a sort of initial capability assessment or needs assessment and then have stuff channeled towards you depending on what your requirements are. There isn't any element of that on the system.
Okay, that's cool. And I think Lahmine would have liked to know more about any models behind the approach to learning, but I'm not sure that in the seconds we've got left we can really tackle that. I do want to move on to Dallas's question very quickly. First, though, I want to commend everybody for a really interesting discussion taking place in chat about how much aggregating social media streams into one place is going to restrict or, in fact, enable people. Okay, coming back to Dallas, and as I say, no answer to that one, guys, but please go on, I'm learning a lot from the discussion. Dallas asks, how else would you use socialization and personalization features besides the obvious ones of just having forums, especially for mobile? Are there any plans, and I'm sort of going forward with what Dallas said here, any plans in the future to use any other ways of getting in touch with, for example, experts or finding people, or be more looser in the personalization features than having forums?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, the personal profiles do allow that, contacting of experts already. So that's already there.
Okay.
I think, the short answer is I'm not aware of explicit plans to take it out beyond that. I mean, something I think that it's perhaps not necessarily, but in terms of the collaborative thing, it's something that we are increasingly looking to do, is to allow people to, particularly in areas where people are using the mobile features and functionality and using their devices so much to access this, is to allow them to really use the devices for what they can offer. So, not simply as a way of viewing materials, but actually to look at other functionality that's on the device, which can, a simplistic example perhaps in this case would be, the ability to where, it's not so relevant in this case as it happens, but you can imagine situations where you have people working in the field, and they, an engineer, for example, who's trying to solve a particular problem or has come across a fault or something that's broken, can take a picture using their mobile device and then directly can contribute that into a learning environment. So